Hello, everyone, and welcome to your brand new favorite Packers podcast, the Father-Son Packers podcast. This is episode 1. I am here, one of your hosts, Tommy, and I'm here with my co-host, my dad, Matt. Dad, how you doing today?
I'm doing well. It's great to join you. Looking forward to talking Packers.
Yeah, looking forward to talking Packers. Before we start talking Packers today, we just want to do a quick couple of shout-outs to Jon Meerdink specifically, to Blue 58, to thepowersweep.com, and that's because we are here as part of their great generosity of having their Blue 58 podcast scholarship. And they have been so kind as to host a contest for having a new podcast, and we were lucky enough to be chosen. And we just can't thank John and that whole team enough for everything they've done in helping us get set up, giving us tips and tricks and pointers, and we just wouldn't be here in this Packers media space without them, so we wanted to give them a shout-out.
Thanks, John.
Yeah.
It was great to talk to you the other day and go over the ways to record and set up a podcast.
Yeah, and, more smart Packers fans out there, hopefully, after listening to this.
Right.
Or not.
We hope we are not undoing your mantra of making better Packers fans by making
smarter Packers fans. Yes. But without further ado, just wanted to say thanks, John, really quick, and let's get into it. First, a couple news and notes from today's practice. Today we were recording Sunday night, August 14th. We're mostly going to be talking about the game on Friday, August 12th. But first wanted to touch on a few notes because big news, Dad. Elton Jenkins is back off the PUP list. Robert Tonyan is back off the PUP list. And Christian Watson is back off the PUP list.
It was very exciting. And I was thinking there was a chance that Watson might come off for the PUP this week. I'd heard some rumors about that. And there were rumors that Tonyan and Jenkins might be ready by the beginning of the season. But I was only going to believe it when I saw it. So it caught me off guard today.
Yeah, when I saw the Jenkins stuff, I was like, everyone's like, he looks close. I was like, Bakhtiari looked pretty close a lot of times. I'm not getting my hopes up, but it's really good to see him out there, at least in the one-on-ones.
And it's nice to see that at least for like Watson's not wearing any kind of sleeve on his knee anymore. Mm-hmm. And in the drills today, and you said about Jenkins.
And neither is Tonyan. Tonyan's not wearing any brace either.
Jenkins is wearing a sleeve.
He's got the same sleeve he's got on, it looked like, from the clips I saw.
So that's all encouraging that they're able to go through the drills without so much support for the repaired knees. So that's
knock on wood, hopefully we'll get to see Watson next preseason game, or maybe preseason game 3. Probably preseason game 3 is more likely. And then Elton and Tonyan, we don't need to see you. Just take it till week 1. It's fine.
Yep, that's all we're hoping is healthy bodies for week 1.
Yep.
And I would just like to mention that Tommy mentioned we're going to be talking about the game that happened Friday. I had the good luck of going there on Friday in person with my wife. Tommy's mom found tickets, and so I ran out there kind of last minute and saw the game there were a few Packers fans around us too.
Hey.
A couple of Love jerseys and Tipa and Alei jerseys right in front of me.
A Tipa jersey? That's
Tipa
rare.
Jerseys.
Two Tipa. Oh, they must
jerseys.
be family members.
They were together side by side. 2 Tipa jerseys.
That's pretty
2
cool.
Love jerseys in front of me. A few Rodgers jerseys, some Matthews jerseys.
Okay.
Some
hey, Packers fans
White
travel
jerseys.
well.
There
Good
are a
stuff.
decent
Good
number
stuff.
of Packers fans and some just right around me.
Go Pack Go. We got the best fans in the world, But anyway, those are the main notes from Packers practice today. So without further ado, let's get into the game. First thing we wanted to talk about, because before the game started, we had a pretty long inactive list to go through. Some highlights off that inactive list, at least that I found interesting, Dad, you can tell me what you thought, was that Sammy Watkins was inactive, which I think means he's totally on the roster. He's not on the bubble at all.
Right, and that's kind of a contrast to Funchess, who many people have compared Watkins to. Last year, Funchess was active and played in the preseason games.
Yep.
So it seems like he was clearly playing for a spot, while at least our initial conclusion now is that Watkins already has his spot.
Yeah, I think Watkins is pretty cemented in that spot, especially with what LaFleur has been saying about him. I know a lot of the beat reporters have said he hasn't exactly flashed in practice, but I think all the signs are pointing to him being firmly on the roster. Some other inactives, Dante Vaughn and Innis Gaines, seem to be similar to Stanford Samuels and Will Redmond being inactive for the Texans for the first preseason game against the Texans last year. So it seems like those guys are most likely not going to make the team, same to those other two. Daphne had a knee injury and missed practice on either Thursday or Friday. I can't remember off the top of my head. But he was inactive for this one and also inactive for week 1 against the Texans last year, preseason week 1. And then sorry, go ahead.
One question. Now, was Gaines still recovering from, there was somebody besides Savage who had a hamstring or some kind of injury at family night?
I'm pulling up
Was Gaines recovering from that?
He is still recovering from a hamstring injury. That's a good pull. Yep. I had to pull up my producer had to pull up that info. Yes, my producer had to pull up that info.
I was thinking it could be that Gaines may not be quite in the Redmond-Samuels boat, though I don't remember what their injury situations were in preseason game 1 last year.
Yeah, but that's a good note. Innis Gaines was not practicing, so it's possible that but it is, I'm just saying, mostly the parallel is if you miss the first preseason game and you're on that edge of the roster, it is tough to make the roster. And then the last inactive that I thought was the most important was Ladarius Hamilton, who a lot of people had talked about being in line for that third edge rusher spot, and he missed practice I believe he missed practice that week as well, and that's tough for him because he had been looking pretty good in practice apparently, and it's tough because I think that spot we'll talk about later a little bit, but I think Enagbare has really is pushing him for that third spot now.
Yeah, I thought he and Garvin both did some nice things during the game, and Tipa Nalea as well. Though he did
get hurt though,
and wasn't able to play as many snaps.
Yeah, so hopefully for Ladarius Hamilton, he can get back soon by that next preseason game because I think he's got some chance to be that third, fourth edge rusher, but he's gonna have to play in the preseason to get that spot. But speaking of Tipa getting hurt, that kind of does lead us into our unfortunate new injuries from this game. According to Matt Schneidman from The Athletic, he tweeted today that Juwan Winfrey with a groin injury, Tipa Nalei with an elbow injury, Kavion Ento with a toe injury, Akil Byers with a toe injury, who was unfortunately in a boot today, which is not great. Dallin Levitt with a shoulder injury, who Matt LaFleur said is going to, quote-unquote, miss a decent amount of time, it sounds like. Tariq Carpenter had a knee injury, and those were the new DNPs. Anything stick out to you there, Dad?
Yeah, I missed these during the game except for the Levitt injury that I saw live, where at first I was afraid he had a concussion. But you could see in the replay that he actually hit with the shoulder, but then his arm just went limp immediately.
Yeah, immediately.
So you knew there was something bad with that shoulder. And of course, the Packers, we have no idea how severe most of these injuries are.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and I mean, the practice is only 2 days after the game, so it could just be some of these guys getting a little extra rest, hopefully for most of them. Although it does seem like Levitt, and it's unfortunate because he didn't exactly play very well either. Would have been nice for him to have a chance to kind of bounce back the next game, but it sounds like he's not going to be ready for that game.
It doesn't look like it.
Yeah, and I would say it's also unfortunate for Naliak because he was getting that start at the edge rusher spot, but he got hurt, and it's tough because he is the smaller guy who's just having trouble staying healthy.
Right, but the interesting is, everybody's talking about how Tipa's the smaller guy is not going to hold up against the run, but he's actually during his career so far, he's done decent against run plays, even though that was not the prediction. But hopefully the elbow injury will not keep him out too long to be able to have a chance to keep competing.
Yeah, I think it'd be nice, and he's also our emergency long snapper at least as of last training camp. He was getting some spot there, and with how some of the long snapping has gone in Green Bay, could it really be that bad if Nalia was just our full-time long snapper? How bad would it be? How bad would it be is all I'm saying.
The other thing to remember that because these players have already been active in training camp, they cannot go on the PUP at the beginning of the season and come back after just 4 games.
Yeah.
At this point, anybody who gets a new injury and is out for injury goes on IR rather than PUP.
And they're done for the season then, at that point, if they're on that IR, right?
There are some ways where you can get, I think you can still get, cut with an injury designation.
Yep.
And then anybody can claim the player, And if nobody else does, then you can actually get them back. I remember this came up last
Yes,
year,
came
the
up
year
with
before.
Funchess last year.
And so,
Last year.
so there is this kind of funny little loophole that if you have a player on IR and you cut them and they clear waivers, then you can get them back and they can play. There's something.
Yeah.
It's this like funny little loophole that I don't know all of the details of.
Yeah, and I think also hopefully Winfrey's injury isn't super major because I think he's really in a dogfight for that 7th wide receiver spot.
He's
and
been playing really
he's been playing.
well.
He's been playing really well. He's been good in practice. He's been good he was pretty solid in the game. Didn't look super explosive, but he was getting open.
Yeah, and fighting for the ball, man. That tip to himself and then come down.
That was the play of the game.
Saved Love as well, and really nice play.
Yeah, I mean, I saw that ball pop in the air, and I was like, "That's a pick. I guarantee that is not going to a Packer. It has never gone to a Packer before."
I don't know who the defensive back he beat out to us there.
I want to say it was Kadar Holman, Packers legend, Kadar Holman.
Packers, yes. He was involved in multiple plays.
Yes.
He and Burks. Apparently, Burks and Holman led the Niners in tackles.
I saw that. I did see Burks led the Niners tackles. You know, he was. I heard his name a lot that game.
Yes, he was actually.
He looked pretty good. He looked better than he ever did as a Packer. That's all I'm going to say.
He was just involved in the ball a lot. So
yeah, and I mean,
good for him.
Yeah, good for him. I mean, he's always seemed like a nice guy with the Packers. Just never could quite catch on here. But I guess those are the main takeaways from the injuries. It's really tough for especially Winfrey, Nalia, and Levitt, but all these guys, and hopefully they can get back soon. But anyway, you want to start digging into the game?
So we go through bits of the game. So you want to start? So you want to go on?
Well, I'm thinking we just touch on special teams really quick, just because that's quick.
We got the special teams, defense, offense, and defense.
Yeah, let's start with defense. That's such a silly name to me. I understand the idea. It's just very silly to me. So special teams. Well, the main takeaway is that Burkic is not good, but you probably already know this because he was cut on Sunday, and so it doesn't quite matter that he missed a 32-yarder by about 40 yards.
We didn't record this fast enough to beat Burkic getting cut.
No, we were going to talk about Burkic. I was going to be like, does it really matter how bad the misses are if he only missed one? It did. He is out. He is gone.
Yeah, but also out with an injury destination. But still, that was...
Oh, it was with an injury designation.
Yeah, LaFleur said he hurt his hamstring in warm-ups or something.
Yes, and in order to replace him, they have signed Ramiz Ahmed. I hope I'm pronouncing that correctly. Who has previously kicked in the USFL, if I'm not mistaken. Apparently, just based on some
beat 60-some yarder this season.
I'll take your word for it. But according to at least I think it was Andy Herman, he said the ball popped off his foot a lot better than Burkic's did. That could just be some light confirmation bias, but it's good to get another guy in there because it definitely seemed like Burkic was not going to be the guy. Beyond that, I thought O'Donnell didn't look too bad, but his 2 punts netted only 42 and 39 yards respectively in good weather, so that's not great. And those stats are from ESPN. I did think his holding was pretty good, though. There were a couple high snaps that he got down pretty well, and he wasn't an active impediment to the process like Bojo was last year.
I think all of the holds seemed clean. I was looking at them and taking notes, and I think only there's one snap that was right on target, 2 that were more like head high that he was able to get down of the ones that I looked at. So I think he's doing a good job of getting the ball in place and in rhythm. And then the punts, the other thing I'd say about the punts is he was kind of pinning on the sideline to reduce the chance for long returns. And the returns were all, in the 3 to 8 yard range. I don't think
the second return was a 46-yard punt with a 7-yard return is what I had down.
Okay.
So I think that's a good point about the directional punting, though. They were all to the sideline, which is a nice just add on there that he was doing that at least.
Yeah, so that I think was a plus as well on the punting, though he didn't boom anything, but he also didn't shank anything.
That is the beautiful standard that you hope for Green Bay Packers punting and special teams. We will take anything at this point, as long as it's not like last year.
The lack of shanks will continue throughout the season.
The shanks will continue until
morale
improves.
Morale improves. Yes, I'm hoping that we have no more of that in the cold months now.
Goodness. Yeah, beyond that, I thought the returns looked pretty good. I thought Amari looked better than Gafford, but we'll touch on Amari a little bit later. Anything else you got on Weefence?
Well, you want to talk about Amari's big return?
Amari's big return, only to get leveled by Rashawn Gary on the sideline, on his butt.
That might have been the biggest hit of the game.
That one, or Hufanga's on Goodson's was a pretty nasty pop.
There were 2 times that Goodson got flattened. And,
I know Goodson was looking at the Niner fans like that, I'm sure.
Around me were super excited.
I bet.
And I was like, you could tell I think for Goodson, both times, at least one of them, he's like slowing down to look for a cut, so he loses his momentum.
I thought he was slowing down to look at why on earth Tyler Davis didn't block Hufanga. That's what I thought he was looking at.
That's possible, one of those plays. But he's like looking to make a cut, and so he's no longer got his forward momentum to meet the defender's forward momentum. Mm-hmm. And so he just gets knocked back on his butt.
And, we can talk about Goodson a little bit later for the offense, but I do think I think he could be a little more decisive, but I liked what I saw. But yeah, that Amari Rogers return was really nice. He looks a lot better. He looks a lot more explosive this year. Yeah,
what you can see, he reverses field and then goes around. And when you're watching the return as he's moving upfield, he is actually running past the coverage. Mm-hmm. He is speeding past the opposing players. So it looks like he definitely has more burst.
He looks faster. He looks so much faster.
Right, and you can compare, he's actually running by players.
And I think Vernon Scott, had a decent block on that. It wasn't great blocking on the return. A lot of it was actually Amari, which is nice to see for him. But I do think Vernon Scott did a decent job springing him. But anyway, that's Weefence. That's all I got for that. So now we're going to go to our offensive takes. And one of our segments that we're going to try and make a regular segment is Interesting Stats with Tommy and Matt. That almost rhymed. So I'm going to handle a stat that I found interesting for the offense, and then my dad is going to handle a stat that he found interesting for the defense. And we're hoping to kind of do a little bit more, use this as a bit of more of a deep dive into some interesting things and trends that we found interesting, kind of nerd out a little bit on some numbers, just that great podcast numbers content that you're really here for, just very engaging.
If you're not, we're hoping to attract as much nerddom as we can.
Oh, yes. There will be plenty of Lord of the Rings quotes and movie quotes and references that 20% of this audience will understand. It's great. It's great. But anyway, to start off with our interesting stats section, I'm going to talk a little bit about the man of the hour, Romeo Doubs. The future Hall of Famer, as reported by Justice Mosqueda. That was a good scoop he got there. But right.
Getting fitted for his jacket already.
That MS Paint Photoshop is one of my favorite things on the internet right now. But at first glance, 3 catches for 45 yards and a touchdown. Pretty solid day. Did have a drop and a half, I would say. You can go back and check those highlights there on YouTube. But I wanted to talk about how he had the game high 7 targets on just 28 snaps. And the reason I wanted to talk about that was because targets, in my mind, are you getting open. You have beaten your man. And the fact that he only had 3 for 45 and a touchdown is, you'd like to be a little more efficient with those targets. But let's talk a little bit about those 7 targets, and he only played 28 snaps. So no one else for either team had more than 4 targets, just as a note, just as like a little baseline to think about. So 7 targets on 28 snaps, 25% of the time he was on the field. They were throwing the ball to him. Now, if you want to look at this and compare it to some other rookies, I'm just going to tell you right now, he is blowing them all out of the water. Let's look at some other 4th rounders. Just, guys that were drafted around his draft slot. Ekuzanma for the Dolphins was drafted in the 4th round. He had 19 snaps and he had 3 targets and 2 catches and no snaps with the starters. Another 4th rounder, Calvin Austin, unfortunately didn't play due to injury. So there's kind of your baseline for what a 4th rounder would normally do. Play with the backups, get 3 targets on 19 snaps. That's like about ask my producer for the math, a 15% targets per snap basis. That's what a basic 4th rounder would do. Now let's look at what the 1st round rookies did. I'm not going to talk too much about Drake London because he got hurt, unfortunately. Hopefully he'll be okay. We're going to skip that one.
I haven't heard how severe that is. But
Yeah, it didn't look great, but, fingers crossed. So let's go straight to Olave. He had 15 snaps and 1 target. Garrett Wilson, 15 snaps, 3 targets. Jahan Dotson, 22 snaps, 0 targets. Treylon Burks, 30 snaps, 1 target. Those are first rounders, guys. And just to shout out, that's John Hendricks on Twitter, Jeff McClain on Twitter, PFF, and Ben Arthur on Twitter for those snap numbers. But those are first rounders that are doing nothing near what Doubs is doing right now in terms of getting open and earning targets. Targets are an earned stat. Those are based solely on your talent at route running. Now let's look at some second round rookies. Wan'Dale Robinson, 14 snaps, 0 targets. Thanks at NYG News 1 on Twitter. Pickens, 21 snaps, 5 targets. He's one guy that a lot of people have been talking about at camp, talking about why didn't they draft Pickens in the second round. I know some other Packers podcasts that were really high on Pickens. That was via at Steelers Depot, by the way. So he had a really nice one, but even that isn't the same target to snap share as Doubs. It's not even quite there. And he was drafted 2 whole rounds before. Tyquan Thornton.
I would say that of all of the other receivers, like Doubs and Pickens are getting the most buzz.
Easily.
Of all the rookie receivers by far.
Easily the most dubs. And I know that they easily the most buzz. And sorry, just a little Freudian slip with the dubs. Yes, the most Doubs.
Who's the most Doubs like? Doubs, of course.
But you go down the list. Tyquan Thornton, 22 snaps, 2 targets at PatsCap. Alec Pierce, 32 snaps, 3 targets. Kevin Hickey from Colts Wire. Sky Moore, 27 snaps, 3 targets at Matt Derrick on Twitter. You just go down this list. Jalen Tolbert, 40 snaps, 7 targets. He was the only one with as many targets as Doubs, but he played 12 more snaps. He had that many more opportunities to get targets. Matt Owen from Cowboys Wire, thank you. You just look down this list, and no one else is, if you think of getting open as targets per snap, no one else is doing what Doubs does. Those kind of numbers, and I understand that it is preseason, but those getting targeted on 25% of snaps is rare. Devontae Adams, I did the analysis on this, has hit this mark only 9 times in his entire career, and that's Devontae Adams. Devontae Adams will have a gold jacket when he decides to hang it up. He has been the best receiver in the league for 3 years. He only did this 2 times last year. He did when he was getting easily the most targeted receiver in the league. He did it versus San Francisco in week 3 and Cincinnati in week 5 when he had set his career high for yards. Those are the only times where he had at least 28 snaps and had 25% of targets per snap. So if we're looking at that kind of information and that kind of metric, I think it is fair to be very excited about Romeo Doubs. And I know it's hype season and everyone's super excited about the rookie every year. I know someone on NFL Network, I can't remember, it was very funny. They were talking about if Romeo Doubs was real or fake, and they were pulling up old Packers training camp reports. It was Jared Abbrederis in line for a big role, Jeff Janis in line for a big role, Jake Kumaro in line for a big role. It's all these guys down the line. They're why should this be any different?
I can't remember if this was Schrager or Brandt who was pulling that up.
It might have been McCourty also. I'm not 100% sure. I think it was Good Morning Football though. But just because it hasn't worked out before, no, I don't think any other of those receivers would be capable of doing what Romeo Doubs has done this early. And I think that these numbers in terms of getting that many targets on 28 snaps, and only 15 of those snaps where he ran a route, by the way. So if you look at target share per route run, it's almost 50%, which is absurd. But you can look at other rookies, you can look at really good players, and they're not doing this or not doing it very often. And so I think that it is very fair to be excited about Romeo Doubs going forward. What do you think about that, Dad?
I think it's great. I know I was watching the play from the end zone, and so I could see the long touchdown bomb was running away from me, so I could see him break it open and the ball come in. But what you could see there is just a few plays earlier, he did the exact same thing. He burned the corner and is running downfield, but Love's throw was too far to the inside, and so he couldn't get it. But they were able to get it, and those were 2 different corners. He burned Moore and
Tarvarius Moore was the one he burned for the touchdown.
And he burned Holman a couple snaps before, where he was had him stacked and had him beat downfield for a touchdown if the ball was on target. So not only did he have those. the catches, but he also had other opportunities that were missed. Of course, then of course, it wasn't all perfect. He had
Of course, yep.
the drop on the cutter across, but he broke wide open. Ball was a little on his hip behind him. Should have had it for a nice easy gain.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think the one near the sideline honestly could have been one of Jordan Love's best plays of the game. Just as Jordan Love rolled out of the pocket,
right,
going the wrong way.
To his left.
Yep, it was a nice ball on the run.
Rotate his torso to throw the ball.
And I think Doubs would tell you he's got to catch that. But It's the first preseason game. It's not all going to be perfect. All I know is I am very excited about him, and I think that maybe not sky's the limit, but I think that he's going to be at least a really good contributor in year one, and maybe even more going forward. And especially just thinking about the value they got in the 4th round picking him there, I am over the moon excited.
I was really excited about the Packers 4th round. The 2 4th round picks.
Him and Tom.
Tom and Doubs are 2 of my draft crushes. So I nerd out on a lot of mock drafts. And I was taking Zach Tom and Doubs anytime
every single one.
Every time they were still there in the 4th, I picked them. And sometimes I was picking Tom as early as the 3rd.
I was taking Eningbari as early as the 3rd, and he fell to the 5th. They had a great draft, I think. Time will tell. But
time will tell. But yeah,
early returns are pretty good. But yeah, so that's my interesting stat for offense. And then do you want to just touch on a couple other things we found interesting on offense before we move to your interesting defensive stat? Any quick hitters you want for the offense?
So quick things I'd like to say about the offense. So I was watching the offensive line quite a bit, and I felt in general the pass protection was pretty good. There was a play on a stunt where Tom and Royce Newman didn't communicate on who was going to take who, but actually Jake Hansen
cleaned it up
as the guy stunted around to the inside. Hansen turned it and took the pass rusher for a play that ended up being successful.
And it is a little concerning that Newman is still struggling with stunts. But
yes.
something that is very just a little stat to throw in because you're talking about the pass protection, and I'll throw it right back to you. But according to PFF, the Packers had 5 different offensive linemen finish with 80-plus initial grades in pass protection. That's Hansen, Runyon, Myers, Sean Ryan, and Cole Van Lanen all had over an 80.0 grade in pass protection. So that's very good. That's a very good grade.
Right. So just to my own eye, that was the same. Almost all the drop back passes they had, it was well protected. He was able to set up, hit the top of his drop, and deliver the pass with good pass pro. Their run blocking was not as sharp.
Yeah.
They particularly struggled in short yardage.
They got a little lucky with the 4th down conversions.
Yes, they got stuffed trying to run up the middle in short yards most of the time. I think the offensive line, I think, had better push in the second half with Tom at tackle, and then Newman.
Can we talk about Tom getting pushed though? Because that was the question mark was, can Tom get pushed? And he's out there getting pushed.
That's exactly what I was going to segue to, because his knock was supposed to be his power and his ability to do drive blocking in the run game, and that he couldn't push downfield.
They were like, he's not big enough.
But his plus is being incredibly nimble, very super high athletic scores across the board. Both for agility and for speed
and great
burst.
Pass blocking grades.
And his pass blocking grades are great. Both not only during the season, but he also scored very well at the Senior Bowl in the pass drills, as well as how well he did in the senior. Well, I guess throughout, not just the senior year, but he gave a very few pressures. Handled even first round graded edge rushers. So the fact that he looks to be showing something in the run blocking is very encouraging.
Yeah, we're team Zach Tom now. Zach Tom should start if Bakhtiari, or if they need a tackle to start besides Royce Newman. If it's Hansen and Newman or Newman and Tom, I would much rather take Newman and Tom right now.
But right now it's looking like it could be
Newman and Hansen, Hansen and Tom.
And that the starting tackles are going to be at least maybe Jenkins and Nyman.
Maybe. Yeah, we could talk about the O-line forever, but I do think all those hits are pretty good.
The thing that I really noticed is the difference between how well they were pass blocking versus run blocking. I felt like the run blocking got better later, but that may have also something to do with the quality of the Niners front at that point. So it's hard to disentangle at this point. But they did open a few holes. I thought Goodson, I really liked the way
Goodson looked good. And just to piggyback off of that, I think he looked good, the pun intended, but I think he might be even better than people think, because if you look at everyone is very high on Kylan Hill. Understandably, I think most of that is because they took him in the 7th and he was graded out as like a 5th round prospect. A lot of people had him there. And so the idea of the steal from the draft is still lingering there. But if you look at what Goodson did compared to what Kylan Hill did in his first preseason game, Goodson had 12 carries for 37 yards. Hill had 5 carries for -2 yards in his first preseason game versus the Texans. And all of this is with the caveat that Goodson had more work. He had more carries. He had more work with a good O-line. But then you look at Hill had 1 catch for 22 yards and a touchdown. And that was the high point where everyone was like, wow, Hill can really play. But then you look at Goodson, he had 2 catches for 24 yards, but one of those was for 23 yards. And so when you think about it, really, the only difference was Hill was closer to the end zone. That's the only real difference.
I do remember that play because that was a nice. It was when we saw.
Hill. I think Hill is very good, but I just think that Goodson could push him for that 3 spot.
Pylon by Hill to make that score, and a great lead block by Myers pulling out to lead him to the end zone there. So that was I remember that play was really nice. But Goodson looked very natural catching the ball, turning up field after he catched it, and breaking. Changing direction, jump.
He looked explosive. He looks fast. Like you said, he is now the 2nd fastest player on the Packers offense, behind only Christian Watson, I believe.
By 40 time, at least.
Yeah, by 40 time, at least.
So by 40 time, he's got the 2nd fastest 40 on offense on the team.
And we don't want to spend too much time on offense because we got
that Doubs plays faster than his 40.
I mean a lot. It's true. I think the 40 time. I think a lot of people know now it's not a perfect measurement. But anyway, we could spend a lot of time on offense, but we want to move on to defense now so we can get your interesting stats. The only thing I wanted to add was we did say we'd talk about Amari a little bit. I thought he looked very explosive with the ball in his hands, but he never really got open as a receiver, which I do think is a bit of a pump the brakes situation where all of his work was done with little gadgety design plays for him to get the ball in space, which is fine. But the thing is, I think we need to keep in mind that I think that they should focus on that for this year. They should try and get him those end arounds. He looked good on the end around. They should try and get him those little leak things. Him not getting open as a receiver isn't great to me. I just think that should be just acknowledged. But I think that they should focus on getting him these little design touches more in the regular season because he looked good with them. But just keep in mind, he didn't really get open as a receiver, and he played almost the whole game.
Right. I was a little surprised to actually see him so late in the game in the second half. But he had the nice end around. He had the nice pass out in the flat where he juked.
Yep, got the touchdown.
And got the touchdown. And I thought in general his speed is looking better.
Mm-hmm. And then another couple quick hitters. Tyler Davis was really bad. DeGuara was good though. Packers have a glut.
DeGuara was really blocking good. Well. His blocking out of the
and Amari Rogers' blocking was also iffy. Just as a little note there.
So
DeGuara.
But so was Doubs.
Yes, so was Doubs.
And so was Davis, and that he's supposed to be like the second best blocker of the tight ends, but he was not blocking that well. He missed on several of actually the stuffs, I should say,
were Davis
on the short lineage, the short yardage runs were actually failed blocks on the wings by
Davis or a receiver as well. Winfrey and Amari missed one together one time too.
The defender was diving in from the outside to hit the runner in the backfield was as much of a problem as the lack of push.
Yeah,
for those short yardage runs.
And then quick hits. I mean, everyone's talking about Jordan Love. I thought he was fine. I mean, you can listen to a lot of podcasts that'll really go into what he's going to do, but I don't think he's going to have that much. Hopefully, knock on wood, have that much impact on this year's Packers. So I feel like it's pointless. You'll see what you want to see with him. He's okay. And the Packers have a glut of he's decent receivers.
Yeah, so that's the thing is that they're all, and this is the question everybody says about adding receivers. At this point, you don't want to add a receiver who is going to be really top line because they've got a lot of receivers in terms of the same level.
Yeah. But anyway, let's move on to the defense because we know we're taking a lot of time right now. And Dad, what's your interesting stat for the defense?
So we've been talking everybody's been talking for years about how, get Kenny help, get Kenny help. And so now we finally have gotten Kenny help. And I think a number of, and we weren't even playing with our top linemen. There was like no Kenny, of course, no Lowry, no Reed, no Wyatt because of the concussion.
Mm-hmm.
So we were without, 4 of our top 5 D linemen. And they were still making plays.
Oh, yeah.
T.J. Slayton looked good, pushed it up. Heflin made a number of nice plays against the run.
I thought Chris Slayton looked pretty solid.
Chris
a little
Slayton looked
up and down,
solid.
but looked pretty good with the ups.
They're right. There's sometimes where he got in the backfield, sometimes where he got pushed back or went a little
Sometimes
too far.
you ever seen The Blind Side where the guy playing Michael Orr blocks the D lineman straight through the end zone and into the stands? Looked like that a couple times. But for every one of those, he was in the backfield and he had led the team with in tackles.
But I felt like Ford. I felt he had a little more trouble holding the point of attack. Mm-hmm. He was getting pushed back a little bit more. I thought Slayton and Heflin both looked better than he did.
Yep.
Byers, I didn't really notice that much.
Me either.
Though I know he was in there. But one thing I wanted to talk about. So it looks like we've got, even in the deep depth, even Heflin is looking like he can make some plays. So I decided to go a little deeper dive on this notion of how does it actually help? How much does it contribute to your overall defense to have better depth in the D line? So what I did is I kind of broke down last season the top 5 defensive linemen for all 32 teams in the NFL. In this case, using their PFF grades to rate the individual players for how good they were. Mm-hmm. So you can take that with whatever size grain of salt.
However much you want to trust PFF. It's just a tool at the end of the day.
Depending on your opinion of PFF.
It is just a tool at the end of the day, but it's useful. Their stats can be useful.
Their stats can be useful. It's a good way to compare players with a uniform system, and on a play-by-play basis. So then I picked out those, and so I then ranked the teams based on the quality of their second best through 5th best defensive linemen. So not counting the contribution of their stud, their best player in this case, for us, Kenny.
Makes sense.
And also the ranking of the teams based on just their 3rd through 5th best players. So not including the top 2 players. So the contribution of the deeper depth, the further down depth, and how much that actually contributes to your win. So, and then I use that to kind of get a ranking for how good different teams' defensive line depth was. And then I tried to compare that to the overall defensive performance. In this case, using DVOA from Football Outsiders, which is a metric for measuring the performance of the defense adjusted for the strength of schedule. So how good the offenses are that they're playing.
Yep.
And what I found is that you do get, and so then it's kind of as a quick check, because I was doing this just this afternoon, I looked at the sort of the median DVOA ranking for the top 10 teams based on individual player ranking, and then compare those top 10 to the sort of the worst 10 in individual players. And the 10 best player units based on the individual players compared to the bottom 10 units of individual players. How well did the overall defense? What we found is that there's an improvement of about 5 to 6 spots in the ranking. So,
and that's based on improving based on your bucket.
So that's improving in DVOA. So if you take the 10 best, the teams with the 10 best, we'll call them rosters. The teams with the 10 best deep bench versus the team with the 10 worst deep bench. The teams with the 10 best D-line bench had a median ranking for the whole defense of like 13. While the teams with the worst D-line depth had an overall DVOA of 18 on average. So there's like an improvement of 5 spots by having better depth in your D-line.
Yeah, and they always talk about how it's really good to rotate those D linemen.
Right.
And
so you get the benefit of them being better rested. And so this isn't even considering how good that number one stud was. Yep. Or how good the secondary or the linebackers are behind them. This was just isolated just for this subset of the D-line, not even the whole D-line.
And it is going to be so nice having decent backup D linemen, because I don't know about you, but if Kenny ever misses games, at least in the past, and probably still, honestly, but I would just be like, okay, we're going to get run on for 200 yards, and hopefully we can score 40 points before they do.
Well, it's not just that. I feel like, you remember if you compared the 2019 seasons by Preston and Ladarius and how they didn't do as well in 2020. Yep. 2020 is the year that Kenny was playing through that groin pull. Mm-hmm. And so his play, I think when his play goes down, the entire defensive front goes down.
He is the tide that raises all boats.
But now I'm hoping that that's not going to be the case, that everybody will be playing well beside him. Mm-hmm. And he won't be that, without him, everything falls apart. And I also think that we'll begin to see Kenny play, and we've seen it in some practice, playing more 3-tech and less on the nose.
Especially with TJ Slayton playing as well as he has been. Give him some nose reps.
And so that frees Kenny to use his upfield burst to get in the backfield without worrying about exposing one of the two gaps for a run, because the 2-gap responsibility of the nose can be taken by either Slayton or Reed, and Kenny can go hunt the quarterback more.
And I'm sure Kenny will be happy to not have to do two people's job on every run play, because it definitely felt like he was blocking. He was set up with 3 blockers on him on some of these plays, where it's just like they did not respect the D lineman next to him for a lot of these plays in the past.
Yep. So that was sort of my little kind of dive on contribution of the deeper parts of the D-line to overall defensive performance.
So as a follow-up, what are you thinking for the Packers' deeper part of that D-line right now? Who are you thinking is going to get those spots?
So I've been making my own. I've done my own 53 prediction, which I'm maybe about to do iteration 3. Mm-hmm. But mostly I've been keeping 6 defensive linemen: Kenny, Lowry, Wyatt, Reed, Slayton, and I had been putting Ford in there as the 6th.
Yep, we've talked about this Ford versus Heflin thing before. It's going to be a tight race.
After watching this game,
Heflin was better.
I'm thinking Heflin.
Hey, that's our trash can full of dirt. And if you guys haven't heard that before, apparently that is what a scout wrote about him, which is a good thing because it means he's hard to move.
Yeah. So that after watching this game, Heflin definitely showed more so far.
And that was a pretty fast trash can full of dirt movement out there. Like he was actually he looked like he had some more juice than he did last year.
He was making some plays. He was getting held on plays.
Yep.
Still trying to make plays.
He was out there chasing down quarterbacks on PA rollouts, and I was like, that's not an edge rusher. That man is 300 pounds.
Yep. So it was looking good, and so we'll see. Of course, some of these competitions are a moment in time.
Yeah.
It is right now. I would say after that, Heflin looks ahead, but there are still a lot of training camp and 2 more preseason.
2 more games, and it's just nice to have the depth and to have that little bit of cushion from injury.
Yeah, and I think that if Heflin is on the 53, then Ford is likely going to be on the practice squad.
Yeah, I'm leaning towards all 4 of the 7th rounders being on the practice squad. Is what it's looking like to me.
Yeah, I'd heard some things about Carpenter struggling with coverage in camp. He did a nice job actually of holding up in the run, and then coming across the tackles on the edge in a play or 2.
Yeah, I did think his tackles did leave a little bit to be desired for me. I felt like he kind of let the guys get a few extra yards each time, but unfortunately he's dealing with a knee injury now, as we said earlier. But hopefully he'll bounce back from
Yeah,
that.
we don't know
And
what that is, whether that's just like
yeah,
a bruise or what the story is on that one.
but yeah, so yeah, that's I think that what you found about how many spots in DVOA was the bottom depth worth again?
I would say it's about 5 spots.
See, that's huge. Difference between 10th and 15th, 13th and 18th. Like that's a big difference.
Yeah, and if you narrow it down even more, you can see even bigger differences. But then you start getting into more noise because you're sampling fewer teams to put into the average. So
Exactly.
it would be the kind of thing you would want to do over like a 10-year span, and then you could really look at the extremes and see how well they hold out over a longer period of time. But
Something for a slightly longer homework assignment.
yes, I didn't have enough time to complete that homework assignment this week.
Yeah.
And then so going back to defense,
Some quick hitters on defense, and because there's so much to talk about on defense.
Edge rusher 3, 4,
Oh, yes.
5.
Let's start
and
there.
Seems, and people talk about, are we going to have 4 or 5? Well, LaFleur himself, I think, said, we know who 1 and 2 are, but we don't know who 3 through 5 are going to be.
I missed that. That's a good.
So
That's a
he
good
actually,
check.
That was a quote of his. So I'm expecting 5.
I'm expecting 5, and it seems like obviously 1 and 2 are set. That's Gary and Preston. After watching that game, I feel like 3 should be Enigbare and 4 should be Garvin and 5 should be Hamilton. Personally, that's where I'm sitting right now. I just want to touch on Enigbare really quick because I was really impressed with him. He was one of my darlings of the draft coming out of South Carolina. I think it was, I can't remember which Packers reporter it was on Twitter, but was saying that he's not a shorts guy. He wasn't a shorts guy in camp, and he wasn't a shorts guy in the combine process, but he is a gamer. He has got that dog in him. And
he is not.
Those little X-ray memes of the dog and the X-ray? You know what I'm talking about? The ones that you see on Twitter with they just like show like an X-ray and it's just like they Photoshop a dog into like where the chest is and it's like he got that dog in him. But anyway, he got that dog in him.
Right. So underwear Olympics are not his thing.
No, but although apparently he followed up his really nice game on Friday with a very strong practice on today on Sunday as we're recording. He had 3 pressures on Rodgers in the 2-minute drill and 1 sack, according to beat reporters that were at practice today, which is a very exciting thing that he's going to be hopefully able to stack those successes. But he had 2 quarterback hits, a sack, a tackle for loss. Do you know, quick little quiz, what was the last player to have 2 quarterback hits in a preseason game for the Packers? It's not that long ago. Although it's a guy that I actually thought was I think he got hurt last year before the season, but I was kind of excited for him.
Is it Randy Ramsey?
No, it's Chauncey Rivers.
Oh, Chauncey Rivers. Okay.
Yes, in the last preseason game last year versus the Bills.
Oh, in the last preseason game. But yeah, so I would say one thing you see for Enigbare is he seems to be winning mostly with power.
Yep, and
and he
that's
likes
okay.
to do like the stiff arm and the bull rush to push his way to the backfield, which is, you can see, the kind of thing that's not going to show up in a lot of
without pads on
low contact drills without pads. So you really need to when you want to see how much somebody either rises to the top or fades when it becomes more physical, you really can only see that
in game reps,
in game reps, or perhaps in the competitive practices next week against the Saints.
Yeah, and
but you don't see it so much in partial helmets and shoulder pads.
But yeah, I thought he showed really good power. I thought he showed really good hustle. There were several plays where he was tracking back to the runner. He was fighting through 2 blocks to get to the quarterback on one of his quarterback hits. He was moving. I thought he looked great. And then I thought that Garvin looked pretty good. He had some solid reps out there.
Garvin made a number of good plays, setting the edge and pushing back the. I have to go back and look at the individual play notes
and the thing about Garvin
looked good.
The thing about Garvin and Enigbare especially is the fact that I feel like Garvin is better than his rep. I think he's actually a pretty solid player. But Enigbare, with his power, was showing a lot of good stuff in the run game too. There was one play I think it was in the start of the second half, where the Niners tried to run a little outside run to the left, and it was a really nice play by honestly everyone on the defense, but Enigbari did a really nice job setting the edge on that one.
Yeah, there's a couple of plays where he did that, and I think that, and Garvin also said it. The thing I'd like to remember on Garvin, he's still really young. Mm-hmm. He came out he had great testing, and was young, and I think it's worth giving him a little more time to see what he can develop into with that combination.
Yeah. Just going down, what else I had for the defense? I think safety depth is a problem. I think, unfortunately, Levitt got hurt, but before he got hurt, he was bad. And hopefully, he's able to come back, but he did not have a good game. He was beat really badly on the first touchdown for the Niners to Danny Gray. He just didn't look fast enough and looked slow.
Gray got 4.33 speed.
To be fair, Gray is very fast, yeah.
He might be the fastest receiver on that team. So it was just a bad matchup for him. With no help, because he's there as a safety. He needed, if he's good, really, you shouldn't be having most safeties on him with no help behind, covering Danny Gray. He really much had no chance. You could see that he's like 5 yards behind him already by the time that ball's in the air. He was just burnt so quickly. And then there was the other play, and the other long touchdown.
It might have been his fault, but it sounded like LaFleur said it was not his fault.
Right. It was hard to tell. Gafford gets turned around, juked, and falls over.
Yeah, the sniper got him on that one. The turf monster came up and grabbed his legs.
But there was zero safety help over the top. Yeah. They both are actually moving towards the line of scrimmage.
But I don't know if you caught it when LaFleur was asked about that one. He said, he was saying, because they asked him about that touchdown, getting beat a couple times, and he said, yeah, it looked like our corner fell down on that one, so that's one of those unfortunate things. So it sounds like he thought that Levitt played it all right. I know some people on Twitter were saying he probably should have played it top down, which means from like the deeper routes to the shorter routes, but it sounds like LaFleur, that's the way that he played it was how LaFleur wanted him to play it, and that it was mostly a product of Gafford falling down.
Yeah, but now Gafford is, got, who knows how long he's going to be out with that shoulder injury.
You mean Levitt?
Sorry, Levitt. We don't know how long Levitt's going to be out.
It sounds like it's not great. It sounds like it's going to be a while.
So if we look at about our safety depth, we got, I think Vernon Scott looked okay.
I didn't notice him, which, that's right. That's good enough. That's good enough.
And then Sean Davis.
Didn't notice him at all either.
Was he inactive? Really?
No, I'm pretty sure he played.
Okay, I have to go back and look at my notes and look at the game again. But the and then for the safety depth, and Gaines didn't play because he was, I think, got still recovering from the hamstring.
Sean Davis played.
He did play, okay.
Yes, he did. But I didn't notice him, which is good and bad.
I have to say, I didn't notice him.
Yeah. You know who else I didn't notice? I did not notice Quay Walker. But, he only played a handful of snaps.
Right. Because McDuffie showed up.
But you know what linebacker did show up? Isaiah McDuffie looked good, and he seems to have passed Chris Barnes on the depth chart.
He was shooting gaps. He was making plays. I thought
he
looked good.
He was making tackles.
Yeah.
He was not whiffing, and he played, I think, a team high. I saw 11 special team snaps, I believe. So, put his name in pen on the 53-man roster. He is making the team. I am betting my paycheck on it.
He looked a lot better than Wilborn or Summers out there.
Yep. Wilborn really struggled. I thought Wilborn was the worst of the linebacker group on Friday.
Yeah, I think I'd have to agree with that.
Yeah, and McDuffie, it seems like he's got some burst to him. It's interesting to me these past Barnes because I've always been a bit of a Chris Barnes fan. I've always thought he's pretty good.
Yeah, it's a little hard to tell if he's actually past Barnes at this point because it may be that they never had a plan to have Barnes play much.
Yeah, but it's just weird because Barnes played. Let me see. I can pull it up. Linebacker. Barnes played. Oh, he only played 12 snaps.
Right.
To be fair, but he didn't play any with Walker. McDuffie played all of the ones with Walker. It was all McDuffie and Quay out there for the initial. Yeah, I know, right? So no Barnes with Quay, which I think is very interesting.
But McDuffie looked really good.
Yeah.
Corners, I thought actually Nixon made some.
I was good. You took the words right out of my mouth.
I thought Nixon looked good, and making tackles and And
He
John
looked like a sure
Charles.
tackler, and yeah, SJC looks better than he did last year.
Yeah.
And then I think Keandre Thomas looks like he has some good foot speed, and I think he had a couple tackles on special teams too.
I think he was the one who had a really nice pass breakup.
Yep, he was trailing.
Third
Yep.
down, and he gets his hand between the receiver's hands and rips the ball out.
Yep, and I thought he looked pretty good. I think he was wearing number 43, which is not the best safety, not the best corner number, but safety corner number. But we'll work on it.
Yeah, and both Gafford and Ento had
Apologies to Troy Polamalu, who is the only one who can pull it off. No one else can pull it off. I'm sorry.
And I think both Ento and Gafford had nice breaks on the ball to break up passes. Both of them could have potentially made the interception and did not.
Yeah, I think Ento is an uphill battle right now, especially with being hurt too. He was in there with the dregs of the roster in the fourth quarter.
Yes, that's when he had a broke in front of the receiver, got both hands on the ball, but did not come down with it.
Yeah. Well, I think that's kind of wrapping up everything that I wanted to talk about in this game. Did you have any other things you want to talk about before we let our good listeners marinate on this one?
I think that's about it in terms of kind of the big picture and the deep dives that we did. And I think we mentioned everything that I wanted to talk about today. So.
Yeah, this has been the Father-Son Packers podcast. We hope it has served as a nice little flavor for what we hope to bring to you guys going forward. We're trying to do maybe 2 a week going forward is our goal. But, we'll see. It's the very first episode. We'll see how we do. Sorry for any technical difficulties. We're still very new at this, but what we bring is we're very excited about the Packers. Very excited about bringing you Packers content. And we hope that you liked this enough to return. And if you didn't, we hope you are willing to give us another try. But anyway, I think that's my sign off. Dad, you got any?
Your generosity is our gain.
Exactly. We would appreciate it. But anyway, thank you again for listening. Thank you again to Blue 58 Podcast Scholarship. Yep. None of this would be possible without them. Shout out Jon Meerdink. And yeah, go Pack, go.
Go Pack, go.